Hi, my name is Aaron J. Marks. You can find out more about me at aaronjmarks.com. I'm a visionary purpose coach and a metaphysical leadership mentor. To my knowledge, I'm the only one in human history who's claimed either of those titles, and those that know me well tell me they couldn't imagine better ones for me. For as long as I can remember, I felt like my mind has worked just a little differently than most people's. At times it's been uncomfortable, but I've begun to see that it's actually incredibly important and that there's never been a better time to share the way that I think and see with the creative and entrepreneurial leaders out there who need to hear it. This is my podcast, A Higher Level. Everything we think, see, and do here happens on a higher level, and that makes all the difference. For some of you, these are among the most important and transformational conversations you will ever hear, and they will fill in something you may not have even known was missing, but something that is essential for your happiness and transformation. This podcast is all about creating a space for these conversations, a place to explore your deepest and most persistent questions about the human condition, a place to dream, play, and muse about the meaning of it all, a place people tell me only I can help them access, and a place of crucial importance for the human spirit and our future as the human race. On a higher level, everything is vast, rich, beautiful, and deeply optimistic. Join me there now, on a higher level. Hi, welcome to another episode of A Higher Level. This is Aaron, and today I'm going to tell you my story. So, where did I come from? How did I develop, this way of thinking that I have? Why do I call myself what I call myself? So there's two titles that I've chosen. One is visionary purpose coach, and the other is metaphysical leadership mentor. And both are absolutely true, but they have different resonances, and they sort of have different uses. Some people need one more than the other, and then some people need the other one. So I'm gonna parse out the distinctions of those at the end. But first, let me tell you my story. Now you can read this at aaronjmarks.com, and you can go to the More About Me page, and that's essentially what I'm going to be talking about. Is that I'm going to be paraphrasing that story, as I remember writing it. So you can always go back, you can go back a long time. I always joke when, whenever I'm asking someone for their story, or when someone asks me for their story or for my story, it's like you could conceivably go back to the beginning of time if you wanted, because it's all the same story, like a long time ago, something was set in motion, and it's still playing out, in all these ways. And we're all a part of that. Every action that you've ever taken, every thought you've ever had is part of that big interconnected story. And this brings up questions of free will, which I think about quite a lot. And if you talk to me, in any significant capacity, that will likely come up in different ways. And I'm not going to get into a huge exploration of that here. Although I do have an old podcast episode about all the ins and outs of that. If you're interested, you can go to Thinking Hard or Hardly Thinking. That's another podcast I did briefly for a little while. But to me, the concept of a story, of one story, where it starts, how it proceeds, like what a starting point for anything is, it brings you directly face to face with that question of free will. And if you've never really thought about that, I would look that up. But most of the time, I mean, every story, you open up a book, a novel, a short story, it starts somewhere. Think about that. The next time you watch a movie or see a play or read a book, how do they choose to start that story? What's the tone? What's the setting? What's the first thing that's described? The first thing that a character says? How does the author choose it? That fascinates me. So how do I start my story? Well, on the website, I started it in high school. And I remember I went through a major depressive episode in high school, my junior year. And it was a very hard time for me. And there were a number of ways that was dealt with and treated, but one of them was that my family realized that it was going to be better for me to study music instead of biology, which was, kind of the safe major that, that it was sort of assumed I would do. And it's like, if I was going to study music, I would be studying biology as well. And so I had been playing the violin. I was really interested in music, and my mom will tell these stories about how, once we made that decision, like every school project for any class turned into a project about music in some way. It was just something I was really, really interested in. And I had been since middle school. I joined, they don't have these anymore because of the internet, but there were record clubs and, things like Columbia House and BMG. These are the things where you're like, yeah, get, all these CDs for 1 penny. And it was just the clever marketing they had, all these creative ways of, offering deal after deal that were all basically the same. They all ended up basically like with you paying $7 per CD, but they had all these ways of getting you to buy more and more of them so that the value increased. So some people know that, some people remember that. But let's see, I think, in middle school, I joined the BMG Record Club, and there's something about that one spoke to me more than Columbia House. And I had been playing violin. My grandfather was a passionate amateur violinist, so that meant a lot to him, and he loved classical music. And then I had an uncle. I still have an uncle who served as a very formative mentor for me, and he loved classical music. I remember, and he actually lives in Costa Rica, so I'd go to his apartment and see all these records for composers that I'd heard of, but symphonies and operas and chamber music that I had no idea that they wrote that much, and that their output was so vast. And I remember going into his apartment and seeing his massive record collection, and that really made an impression on me. And I sort of thought, oh, I want to learn about this too. I want to get my mind around the vastness and the richness of this cultural treasury. And so the record club was one of the ways that I started to do that. And I quickly switched to, like the classical mode there. So I got the classical catalog, and I started filling my collection with music by Beethoven and Mozart and Vivaldi and Bach. And I really got to know it well. And so I went to college, and technically I was a biology major, like on paper, but I never took any of the biology classes. And so I kept getting these, these nasty letters that's like, if you don't take, biology and zoology 101, by this time, then, your major's in trouble. And so eventually I just realized it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I studied music. And I had learned all this music history, and that was technically my major. I was a music history major. And so I took every music history class that I could. There was at least one per semester. There was often two. And I was doing all the other musical things too. It's like taking violin lessons, playing chamber music, playing in symphony orchestras. I was also composing a lot. The place that I went for undergraduate did not have an official composition degree, but had they had one, I would have easily taken that. Just because that was another thing that I started doing prolifically. And so I was, every semester we could perform our original music. So I was constantly getting performances of that together. And and I would just, I had a great time with all of that. People started to recognize my knowledge and, just how much stuff I would learn and absorb. And I didn't even realize I had a propensity for that, but people, started to tell me that. And then I decided I wanted to keep going on that track. And so I went to graduate school for music composition, and then I had a teaching assistantship for music theory. And that was more of a struggle for various reasons. What I realized going through that program, and I got a lot out of it. Would I do it again? I'm not sure. But what I realized is that the academic music track wasn't gonna fit me, for various reasons. And so I got the master's degree. I wrote a lot of music there, very, very different music. I learned a lot from teaching music theory. It was a very challenging subject to teach. I would it was challenging. It was a struggle at times, and it was very humbling. And later in life, I would have a much more successful music theory teaching experience. But I got the master's degree. Like, there were people around me who were very, very focused on continuing that, going to get a doctorate, and I think they had professorships in mind. I mean, I sort of did, but not enough that I was really committed to that, and so I stopped that. Or I mean, after the master's degree, I decided not to get another degree in music, and instead, I made a very different choice, and my wife and I, or the person who became my wife, we came back to Central Wisconsin because I was going to graduate school in Ohio, and we started a business. We started a school for private music lessons, and we still run that. It's called Noteworthy Music Studio. It's gone through a couple of names, but that's the name we've settled on, and the name we think fits it well. And as of recording this, we have about 150 students. It's the largest for-profit music lesson program in Central Wisconsin, and that that taught me just so very much about so many things. I'd had the sense coming out of graduate school that as much as I enjoyed academia, it felt removed and distant, and the phrase they often hear is ivory tower, from the lives of normal everyday people. And there was something about that bothered me. I wasn't entirely comfortable living entirely in that realm. And so starting a business, that was, I knew that would fill in a very, very important way of thinking and relating to people that academia just wasn't doing. And indeed, that's been absolutely true. Now, I'm still very academic. Like I like to think about things, and one other thing that happened in graduate school, and this is notable. So I was there to write music for my degree technically, but there were also a lot of academic classes that involved writing writing papers. And so I wrote a lot of papers. And what I noticed is a lot of my friends struggled with writing papers. Writing music came much more easily to them, but these academic classes where they had to write articulately and develop ideas, in a clear, dimensional way, like they really struggled with that. And I was able to help them with that. And around the same time, I noticed I became just very, very, very preoccupied with the meaning of life, in a way that's never left me. I still think about that all the time, like, and what it does, now especially, is it takes me to the point of absurdity, like every moment of every day. I live with this constant sense of absurdity, and that's another episode I'm going to record. But I think it was in graduate school that I really started to notice my thoughts going there, which is like, every worldview that you would pick up, you can argue it to absurdity, such that all you can really say is that existence is very, very strange indeed. So that became, a major part of the texture of my thinking at that point. And I would have conversations with people all across, various philosophical and theological and religious spectrums. And you got really intense about it. People, would, like, they sort of started to associate me with these really, really challenging and intense philosophical debates and lines of inquiry, like such that people were often exhausted by it. And I'm still like that. I can still do that with many, many, many people. And what I've realized since is that there are some people who really, really thrive on that, and they share that sense of absurdity. And just like the part of their brain craves this space to just probe all the characteristics of existence, from every possible angle, and to maintain a safe space to do that, and appreciate that absurdity that hides behind every corner. So it was graduate school that I really started to see that tendency in myself. So anyway, the business ownership, like that was really that really gave me a different perspective, a different set of skills. Of course, because like if you run a business, you have to think about systems and marketing and communication and persuasion and sales and management and hiring and real estate and branding and company culture. Every single business has those aspects, and every single business demands that those different aspects be honored in different ways. And so what Heidi, that's my wife, what Heidi and I noticed is that we had a very intelligent and what am I trying to say? In other words, we understood, kind of what a business is made of, how it worked, and we were able to transmit that to other people. And what we found is, before long, we were consulting with people. One other thing that happened is we bought a business. It's a small business. It's smaller than the music school, but we went through the complete business purchase process, and so that gave us a lot of insight as well, which has been especially helpful for some of our clients who are either selling businesses or working toward that. So before long, we found that we were consulting with people, people who were starting businesses, growing businesses, struggling with their businesses in different ways. And we found that we did have this level of insight and clarity, and that we could come in and have conversations with the leadership and say, okay, well, the issues that we see are here, here, and here. And so the solutions we would propose are this, this, and this. And so, like 3 or 4 years ago, we stepped more fulsomely into that role as consultants, and brought a lot of intelligence and creativity and quick thinking, and just sort of fast-paced fun to that role. And we've since consulted with dozens of businesses, companies, organizations, and pretty much every time we would leave them better than we found them, with better culture, better leadership, greater powers of persuasion to attract the people that they need. And every business needs two different kinds of people. I call it supply and demand. They need people to buy, and then they need people to sell. So the people to sell, it's typically the team. The people to buy is typically the customer, although sometimes that is reversed. And then sometimes organizations have a very, very complicated kind of profile of different audiences, different groups of people that they need to persuade and deliver different messages to. And so we got very good at seeing those things and helping the leadership navigate some at times very, very complicated messages and audiences. And we became very good at that, and developed a reputation for that. Now, what I noticed, and here's where I talk about the two titles I have: visionary purpose coach and metaphysical leadership mentor. So what I noticed is that the biggest value that I realized I was bringing was that I was coaching the leadership, and I was helping them see a bigger picture of their organization and see it with more clarity, see the strategy that they needed to implement with more clarity and less, kind of insecurity and second guessing. So what I found is that I have this way of talking to leadership, and these people may be confused or uncertain, or they may know what they want to build, but something is breaking down in their thinking, and I'm able to say, okay, well, what is it that you see? Because like you have a vision of some kind, so tell me more about that. What does this look like when it's working well? And then they'll tell me, and then to me it'll be a rather simple, straightforward, and painless process of saying, okay, well, so you need to convince this kind of person to do this because you're going to add value in this way, and then you need to convince this kind of person to do this because you're going to add value in this way, and then that's your messaging. And really, all business strategy is persuading the people that you want to take the actions that you want. It's all it ever will be. It's all it ever has been. Okay. And again, you have multiple audiences. You have people who are going to come and work for you, and then you have people who are going to come and patronize you. And those all require a marketing message of some kind. And then you have to ask, what do they want to hear? Where are they looking? And then that's your marketing message. So, it's as simple as that. And it doesn't make it easy. And, like strategies get intricate, but what I've noticed is that if your vision is clear enough, if your purpose is strong enough, you can run strategies and you don't get stuck in them, so the major message of when I call myself a visionary purpose coach, it's because if your vision is clear, if your purpose is strong, the strategy constantly regenerates, because all you have to do is look at your results and say, okay, it's not working yet. So, the vision is clear. That means there's something about the strategy. Let's go look at the strategy. Let's see where it's breaking down. And what I notice is that when people fixate on strategy instead of getting clear on their purpose and vision, that creates endless self-doubt, second guessing, and comparison, because strategies are typically executed unsuccessfully by looking around at what other people are doing. And that's another person's strategy that comes from their vision, their purpose. So why would you use their strategy? You have to get clear on your purpose and your vision first, and then the strategy becomes relatively straightforward to create from there and recreate, when you see the results. So when I call myself a visionary purpose coach, that's the main message there, is that when purpose is strong, when vision is clear, strategy is infinitely malleable. So that's one service I bring to creative entrepreneurial leaders. So metaphysical leadership mentor, that's a different, it's a related but different one, and it's dear to my heart. So what I noticed is that there are certain leaders, often entrepreneurial, often creative, and they share this funny sense of absurdity with me, and we access that absurdity and play around in what I call the realm of purpose. And I'm going to explore this on a future episode. So the realm of purpose is where we look at existence, but, through the lens of humankind, because, we're humans, and, we have human faculties. And, ultimately it's like I'm looking at my cat over there. His name is Zephyr. Zephyr is not considering the absurdity of existence or the absurdity of feline kind. Only humans do that. And so, it's a very human thing. And I don't know if it's a universally human thing. That's something I'm not sure about. But, I think a lot of people have a sense of absurdity. But what I notice is that there are certain leaders who really have that, and it really, really helps them to find someone else who shares that and understands everything that they say related to that, and gives them a space to just kind of release that stuff. And what I find is that these leaders, who have this sense of absurdity and enjoy these high level conversations, they tend to not have anyone else in their life who understands A, how to have this conversation with them, B, that this is even a conversation that one can have, and C, how much they need it. That's what I really notice. And it's like, these are my people, these are the people I would talk to all day, every day, because, some of these clients of mine, we can talk for hours about this, and it's incredibly energizing to both of us. And I don't know why this is, it's a very strange thing to share, because it's a very rare thing. And, it's something that it's like, I don't know, this isn't necessarily the most helpful thing for us, but it's like, apparently this is what we need for some reason. So, with these leaders, I will have these endless talks, about philosophy and psychology and sociology and economics and history and spirituality and religion. And there's other things in there that I know I'm missing, because it's always an incomplete list. Cosmology and, and physics. And, there's just something about that toolkit, that metaphysical toolkit that allows us to explore that absurdity of life and human behavior from every possible angle, such that anytime any of them raises something that they've thought about or something that they find amusing, I have a way to talk about it. I have a framework through which to look at it and say, yeah, I've thought about that too. I would express it this way. I don't know why that is. It's funny, but I've noticed this too. So when I call myself a metaphysical leadership mentor, that's what I'm talking about. It's that kind of conversation. Not everyone needs it. Not everyone craves it, but some people so do. And my message to you people is, if you don't have someone in your life who can talk to on that level, you're missing out. Like you don't realize what you are losing from not having that, because these leaders who crave this, who need this, I find them and they're knotted up with the tension of leading organizations, dealing with people who are, irrational, like 100% of the time. The daily frustrations of business, that we all deal with, of sales and marketing and budgets and, strategies that aren't working. And, they have visions, and then they have this sense of absurdity, and they don't have anywhere to let that out. And so they're knotted up with the tension of existence, and they don't know it, so they're carrying around all this stuff. And then when I start talking to them, it's like a weight lifts, it's like spiritual chiropractor, right? It's like, or massage therapy. It's like, oh, you have all these knots here. You didn't know it because you didn't have a way of describing them, but let's work on this knot right here. And then it gets released. And it's like, I see a physical change in these leaders, who need this. They sit up straighter, they look up higher, their shoulders open up, and they tell me this, they tell me that their physical tension melts away. So and then they're liberated, they're unburdened, and they can go and continue to be better leaders. I mean, well, not continue, but they can continue to be leaders, and having that space just liberates them so that they can be better leaders. So I find this fascinating, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess all these years I was developing this way of thinking and this way of, this manner of discourse about this very strange thing that we call existence and the human condition, and it is really something people need. So if this is you, if you are a leader, or if you aspire to leadership, you're running an organization and a team, you work in your community, and you have this sort of sense that there's something that's not quite being released for you, and this may be the first that you've actually ever heard of this. I'm telling you, you should talk to me, because I have the conversation you need to be the leader that you can be. So that's metaphysical leadership mentorship. It's a very funny, strange thing, but this is actually what I'm best at. So that's my story. Hope you enjoyed it. I feel like I really got into a flow there at the end, and actually, I feel really good, because that was what I needed to say. So that's my story. That's how I got where I am. So what's your story? I'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch with me in a bunch of different ways, and you'll hear that in the closing bumper. So hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed telling it. And I'll see you on the next episode of A Higher Level. And I think we'll probably talk about absurdity a little bit more. I feel like I talked about it a lot just there, but well, we'll go into, kind of a more systematic exploration and some ways that I notice it, some, kind of cognitive tools that I use to describe it. And, if you enjoyed that last part, you'll definitely enjoy that next one. So I'll see you then. Thanks so much for listening to A Higher Level. I hope that got you seeing, thinking, and acting just a little differently, or maybe even a lot. When you act differently, you get different results. But we need to start with the vision and the thinking. How do you feel? Ready to go and make positive, inspiring changes in your life and work? If so, it means what we're doing here is working, and I would love for you to let me know if this is you. There's a bunch of ways for you to get in touch with me. You can go to my website, aaronjmarks.com, or look for Aaron J. Marks, Visionary Purpose Coach and Metaphysical Leadership Mentor on Facebook, or you can look for Aaron J. Marks on LinkedIn or Instagram. whatever is easiest for you. And if this is speaking to you, I might suggest that you think about becoming one of my leadership coaching clients. In our work together, we'll have conversations on this level, but tailored just to your life and aspirations. You really can't imagine what a difference this can make for your mindset, vision, and results. The first step after learning more about my approach is to book a free no-obligation discovery call, both of which you can do at aaronjmarks.com. If your intuition is nudging you, don't wait any longer. It is likely the next step along the marvelous journey of wherever you are here to go and whatever it is you are here to do. And I can't wait to meet you. Thanks again for listening, everyone. I'll see you on the next episode when we'll continue to see, think, and act on a higher level. I'll see you then. A Higher Level is the official podcast of Aaron J. Marks, visionary purpose coach and metaphysical leadership mentor. Learn more at www.aaronjmarks.com. A Higher Level is written, recorded, edited, and produced by Aaron J. Marks. Music is by Arye. I'll see you next time on A Higher Level.